Hello, everyone. Ron Spomer here with Ron Spomer Outdoors Podcast, and I have to make an apology. On my last podcast, I said I was going to talk about somebody's points being made about the 12 gauge slug gun being an effective bear protection device. And they were talking about Brennicky slugs, and if you use the right slug, you're going to have pretty good success. And I forgot to actually read it in that podcast, found it after it was over. I said I was going to talk about somebody's points being made about the 12 gauge slug gun being an effective bear protection device. And they were talking about Brennicky slugs, and if you use the right slug, you're going to have pretty good success. So I want to do that now, and this is from someone named Mr. Dark 9916. And he says, Ron, as far as 12 gauge goes for bears, I have spoken extensively with several Alaskan guides that I know, as well as some others I was introduced to for the conversation. 12 gauge, 3-inch Brennicky Black Magic slugs. 570 grain slug at 1,500 feet per second. Hard slugs. You're going to get well over 3 feet of penetration in ballistic gel. And at 3/4 of an inch in diameter, those slugs are a potent and very well proven 12 gauge load for big bears. In fact, they're our number one choice that came up again and again from everyone I talked to. It is quite notorious big bear medicine up there in Alaska. A second notable mention was the Federal Extreme Penetrator slug. Buckshot and Foster-style slugs are useless. Well, Mr. Dark, I think you're probably in good company. A lot of guys have said Brennicky slugs are the ones to work with, and more of them have said that the buckshot and the Foster-type slugs are useless, which has been my observations. I have not used those Brennicky slugs, but, what was it, a couple winters ago, Joseph Von Benedict and I did some penetration tests with a variety of cartridge bullets and things for bear, just to see what they would do. And really all we had to shoot into were some firewood logs. I had a bunch of maple logs, about 8 inches to maybe 12 inches around, and we shot into those and found that the shotgun slugs were the poorest penetrators of everything. Now, the slugs we used, one was a steelhead, and this is a flat-nosed, slightly underbore slug wrapped with some nylon rings that ride the bore, so it's pretty close to full size. And obviously, being steel, it's not as heavy as lead, but the velocity is a lot faster because you don't have as much weight to push out that bore. And because it's hard steel, man, it should penetrate because there's no deformation. Well, we dug those out, and I think we got something like 3 to 3.5 inches of penetration is all. We got better penetration out of a 7mm 08 shooting a trophy. No, it wasn't. It was an A-frame, Swift A-frame bullet, right through that log with a little 7mm 08. But everybody up there is saying they really like those Brennickys. I think they're probably worth looking at, guys. Now, the reason so many say that traditional slugs, all lead soft slugs, are useless is because they just are so soft. They hit and then they expand excessively and don't keep penetrating. So stay away from those. And then buckshot, that's overdone. You see it a lot on the old movies and westerns and stuff, and how it's going to blow a man in half because it's so powerful and all this nonsense. What you're looking at with buckshot is individual pellets that might be 32 caliber, and there might be a handful of those. Well, taken together, there's quite a bit of mass there, but each one of them individually hits that bear, and then it doesn't penetrate very well because it's just a round ball, pretty small caliber, so you do not get much penetration. I've got to mention once again before Father's Day, the knife that's on sale for Father's Day. This is the Ron Spomer Classic Hunter Knife from Knives of Alaska. I really like this good all-around full tang steel knife with a synthetic handle that is impervious to moisture and pretty much impervious to damage, all told. It's the G10 handle. It's got good friction on it, so you're going to really hang on to that knife. But you look at that blade, and to me that just epitomizes a good hunting blade. Not too big, so it's not unwieldy. It's got the jimping on the back here. Has, unfortunately, my mugshot on the side of it. But then you'll be the only guy in camp who has a Ron Spomer mug on his knife. And buy this for your pops or your granddad, and you can have his name put on it to really personalize it. And before Father's Day, if you order before Father's Day, they will give you 10% off on the going price and give you free shipping. So you want to get those orders in and really please someone who means a lot to you in the male side of the family. I'm not sure what we're going to offer for Mother's Day. Probably some.
Maybe a mother would like a knife too.
Yeah, you can recognize your mother even if it's Father's Day. What the heck? Yeah, we got to remember to honor our parents, and I can't think of a better way than a nice new knife. All right, let's hear from one of our patrons, Derek, who just wrote in. Just getting started with him, and he says, "Hey, Ron, sorry for the late reply. I can't afford to hunt in Africa right now, but I definitely dream about it, and I am primarily a reloader target shooter and a whitetail hunter. The 35 Whalen is just a passion of mine. I harp on it, and I go on and on about people and can't believe how much it punches above its weight. Thanks for responding to me on that subject. I have a great buddy who has moved out west, and he is currently about to have Randy, the real gunsmith on YouTube, build him a rifle. A side note, the buddy already has an accurate 28 Nosler for muleys and elk. We are both in love with hammer bullets. Would he be better off rebarreling his old 25-06 to a fast twist 25-06 Ackley improved, or rebarreling a Model 70 that he has to the Whalen? I was thinking 25 PRC would be a better option for later, and letting Randy do the Whalen for his bear gun, since Randy seems to be more of an old school guy. What do you think? Do you have any knowledge or experience with Randy? Thanks again. Appreciate everything you do." No, Derek, I have never had anything to do with Randy other than watching some of his videos, and several people have suggested that I interview him, and I thought we'd reached out to him once, didn't we, Bets? Tried to find out how to get a hold of him and couldn't get the job done. So if he happens to hear this, or you can maybe suggest that he give me a jingle, maybe we can get together. But it obviously sounds like he knows what he's doing. He's been a gunsmith for a long time. He's pretty opinionated, but hey, when you've been in the business as long as he has and you've seen what he's seen, you've got a right to have some opinions. So I wouldn't doubt him. But as far as your questions to me about 25-06, I really like that 25-06 Ackley improved idea. In fact, I have one. I started working with it a couple of years ago, and I kind of got lost in the shuffle and pushed to the back of the safe. I need to pull that thing back out. I shot it a few times to Fireform brass, just shot your standard 25-06, and it was really quite accurate and surprisingly fast. And now I've got the brass. I just need to load it up. I've got some bullets in the 130 grain sizes that are coming out now. So I've got a fast twist barrel on that. I think it's a 7.5, if I remember right. Got it from Shaw Barrels in Pittsburgh. You might want to look those guys up. They have been making barrels for a lot of different manufacturers as well as aftermarket for a long, long time, and they do some really great work. I've always had good luck with their barrels. So you might want to check them out. And that's what I would recommend, 25-06 Ackley improved. Going to the 25 PRC, now you're going down to a shorter cartridge, and I just don't think that would be the ideal one for this setup. You probably want to work with a short action rifle in the future on that one. So good luck with your projects, Derek, and get back to me on those, and let me know how they've done. Now we are going to get to the questions that Betsy has pulled up. Now this is a special show, the bulk of it, just answering questions from the Ron Spomer Outdoors website. Everybody who writes in there, Betsy tries to pull a bunch of those up. So that's what I am going to see for the first time here. And the first one is from Arizona. Betsy, do you have something to add?
No, we have so many questions, it gets difficult. We're going to try to do more podcasts to answer them. But
yeah, the idea is we're going to double the number of podcasts we do, I guess, 2 a week instead of one, because there are so many of these questions that come in addition to the ones we get off of YouTube and patrons and all the rest of them. So this is Arizona. Doug, Ron, I enjoyed your 220 Swift podcast. I have a Winchester Model 54 in 220 Swift that my father bought way back in 1936 or 37. I'll be in Victor, Idaho in June visiting my son. I wondered if you'd like to shoot it. Winchester serial number is, it says that it's a 1936 manufacture date. Wow, that is kind of something special there, Doug, and I appreciate that offer. If we can get together, I would love to shoot that. Now, guys, the Model 54 Winchester was the predecessor of the Model 70, and these dates bring it right into focus because 1936 is when the first Model 70s hit the streets. So your pops got one of the last Model 54s likely chambered in that 220 Swift. Then they went to the Model 70. So it would be fun to see the 54. You and I could examine it and compare it to a Model 70 and see what differences there are. That would be kind of fun. So yeah, why don't you get a hold of me again? Send me your email address, same place you sent this to the Ron Spomer Outdoors website comment section. Send one in and say, hey, Ron, I'm the guy with the 220 Swift Model 54. Here's my email, and then you and I can begin to compare notes and contact each other and make sure we're on the same page in the same area at the same time. It gets a little busy around here in June. We're going to be chasing a few critters and doing a little bit of fishing and stuff, so let's make sure we're in the same place at the same time. It'd be a lot of fun, though, if you could swing by. All right, let's see what Jason has to say. He's from Colorado. I have recently gotten my Thompson Center Encore set up for hunting in Alabama. It's a 350 Legend SSK barrel at 16 and a quarter inches with an M4 telescoping stock by Choate. I don't know if you call it Choate or Choate. That's at Choate. I've seen the name a lot, but I don't know that I've ever heard it pronounced. Looks like Choate to me. At any rate, he's got that telescoping stock, and he has a simple scope that I reviewed not long ago. Well, that sounds like that CV Life scope. They are getting so much free publicity off of this site. I think they should take us to dinner. I will be using this rifle in mostly tree stands and for ground level blinds. I zeroed it out to 100 yards, but I keep getting the feeling I've missed something. If you or your staff can think of something that I might have missed when in Alabama hunting whitetail and hog. I'm not quite sure what your question is about something you've missed. So you've got a short barrel, 16 and a quarter. You've got a telescoping stock. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Simple scope. That should be, gosh, you've got everything covered. 315 Legend isn't exactly a long-range flat shooting cartridge, and then when you put it in a 16 and a quarter inch barrel, you're reducing its velocity even more. So I think 100 yard zero might be just about right. I think with a longer barrel, you might get away with a 125 and maybe 150 yard zero. That will give you a little bit higher trajectory of 2.5 to 3 inches at 100 yards, but then you would carry a little bit farther for a dead-on hold out to 150, maybe even 180 yards or so. But with that shorter barrel, you're going to be slowing that bullet down quite a bit, so you're probably safer at 100. Tell you what you should do, though. Get the BC of that bullet, shoot your loads and see what they're actually doing for velocity. Get on the range somewhere and chronograph that. And then take that information, the weight of the bullet, the velocity of the bullet, and its ballistics coefficient. Put that into a calculator. They're free online. And then run out your trajectory data, and you'll see how much you're shooting above your target, below your target with different sight-in distances. So do one with a 100-yard zero, then do one with a 150-yard zero, and if you need to tweak it a little bit, you can go with 130 or whatever. But that will give you a lot of good detailed information, not only on your drops, but your remaining energy downrange. You'll like to find out all that good stuff. All right, let's go to Virginia, where we hear from Adam. Hello again, Ron. Thanks for taking the time to address my thoughts on the 30-06. I, too, have seen a change in recent years concerning the popularity of the great old 30-06. It is definitely starting to slide. My reasoning for this statement is that I have been noticing fewer and fewer new rifle introductions that are being chambered in 30-06. The 308 is more popular, it seems, now. Probably because it's a military cartridge and it's a short action, and those are all the rage these days. Because of weight savings and possibly greater action rigidity. Can it still perform? Well, of course. I have used the 30-06 quite a bit since the late 80s for West Virginia whitetail, and it always gets the job done for me. However, because of a shoulder injury, I have been leaning more toward the light recoiling 6.5 Creedmoor, as well as the 243 Winchester these days. These cartridges have been working great, and I've kind of changed my mind lately. I'll always love the 30-06, but I think it is a tad overkill for my whitetail hunting. It just seems to have unnecessary horsepower for me. I'll still use it, but maybe not as much, unless I go after black bear or get lucky enough to hunt elk one day. Thanks so much. I love your content, and you make me laugh. God bless. P.S. Hello, Betsy.
Hello.
Say hello to Adam, honey. All right, Adam. Hey, that is good information. You know, I'm hearing from a lot of the older ladies and gentlemen who have recently noticed more recoil from their old favorites, and they're discovering that these smaller calibers just are a delight to shoot, a lot handier, and they've discovered that they terminate just as well as the old 30-06, and that's kind of been my observation over the years with all the different things that I've used. If you put the right bullet in the right place, it really doesn't matter so much if it's a 22 caliber or a 45 caliber. It's the bullet in the right place that really seems to make the difference. Now, of course, when you're talking about trajectory and wind deflection, yeah, then you want to pay a little more attention to certain ones over the others. But it sort of reemphasizes the point of if you've got a rifle that you have faith in, you think it works well, and you understand it and the parameters in which it works, distances and all the rest of it, and you have good confidence in it, that's going to make so much difference in your effectiveness. I've taken a lot of game with 243s as well as 300 magnums of various sorts and 375 H&H magnums and all the rest of them. And, you know, I just enjoy shooting those lighter recoiling cartridges myself. So I think you're smack on there, Adam. Good luck to you, and congrats on discovering the fun of the lighter calibers. All right, how about Vancouver Island? Oh, some great bear hunting up there, guys. This is from Aaron. Dear Mr. Spomer, I have greatly been enjoying your podcasts and your YouTube videos, and I appreciate your knowledge. Well, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate you appreciating me. I have narrowed down my next rifle purchase to a 7mm 08, which I feel will be perfect for mule deer and black bear inside of 200 yards with low recoil. I think you're right. However, I have not decided on the rifle yet. I have narrowed it down to the Weatherby Vanguard Obsidian or the Tikka T3X Stainless. In Canada, the Weatherby is $799 and the Tikka is $1,300. My question is one rifle better than the other? And is the Tikka really worth the $500 more than the Weatherby? I have heard good things about both, and I can't decide. Thanks for taking the time to read this and for your response. Oh boy, Aaron. Yeah, I don't know. You're kind of on the cusp here. I can tell you that the Tikka gets a lot of respect from just about everybody. Folks write in all the time about their Tikkas and how accurate they are. In fact, one of my patrons out in South Carolina, Ted, good old Ted, he calls himself, Old Ted. He has 3 rifles, 6.5 Creedmoor, all Tikka. He hands them out to his grandkids and such and lets his friends shoot them, and they all shoot sub-ammo way right out of the box, and he's just loving it. So it's pretty hard to argue against something like that. But there are a lot of people just loving the new Weatherbys. Weatherby has really stepped it up here in recent years. Ever since they've moved to Wyoming, they came out of California to a more gun-friendly location, and boy, you got to admit, that's Wyoming. So they're making some great guns over there. I toured the factory last year, and I met a lot of the folks working there, and they've just got great attitudes. They're all happy and enthusiastic, it seems like, doing their jobs and really proud of cranking out some good high-quality rifles. So, you know, if you're like so many of us, made in the USA, not that we don't like our friends in Finland, Sweden, Norway, and all those countries, but the Weatherby's made here, the Tikka's made there, so that might have an influence on your decision. I don't think you'll go wrong with either one. Honestly, if our money was a little bit tight, I don't think the $500 difference would sway me. I would probably say I'm going to go with that Weatherby. I don't want to upset the Tikka folks because I know they've got great rifles, but you asked for an honest opinion, I'm going with the Weatherby. Good luck with whichever one you choose. I think they're both going to work out just great for you. All right, Richard here. Let's go with Richard. Richard says, Ron, I love your videos, especially the ones comparing cartridges and where they came from. But in all the vids I have watched, you never discuss barrel life in one cartridge versus another. I'm a huge high volume shooter and average 1,000 rounds per month and only shoot paper. So barrel life is more important to me than energy at 400 yards. Yeah, I guess it would be. I really enjoy listening to you. A lot of information. Keep up the good work. Well, that is a great point, Richard. And that was a very nicely done chewing out of Grandpa Ron for not covering this aspect of shooting. But you're absolutely right. I always come from this stuff as a hunter. So I'm concerned about remaining energy and the terminal performance as well as precision shooting accuracy kinds of things. But you're right. If you're just shooting targets, you don't really care how much energy is left in that bullet. So you can be shooting a fairly lightweight bullet so long as it's accurate and all the rest of it. And then you're going to be concerned about barrel life. And I have never shot 1,000 rounds per month with any one rifle and seen how long the barrel will last. So this is a real concern for target shooters. And that's one of the reasons that 6.5 Creedmoor became so bloody popular. Once guys realized that it had this incredible resistance to wind deflection because of the high BC bullets that it's shooting, that made a big difference because it's easy now to calculate your drops. They're consistent. Gravity never changes. Well, it changes a tiny little bit if you go up Mount Everest, but nobody shoots up there. But the wind is always variable, and that's what costs people out there in the open country doing long-range shooting. The wind changes just a little bit, and it doesn't have to amount to but 2 or 3 miles per hour for these really, really long shots. That little bit of difference can push your bullet out of the scoring rings, and there you go. You've just lost the competition. So you want your big, long, heavy bullets, but you don't want to burn your barrel out by pushing with something like a .264 Winchester Magnum or a .26 Nosler. So they get to 6.5 Creedmoor. They put up with more drop in the bullet, but they still got that incredible wind-resistant bullet. So they score higher without burning their barrel out. And I heard from the Creedmoor guys that can go into the thousands of rounds before they start to lose accuracy. It's all about the throat temperature, the flame temperature right there at the throat. Once that bullet leaves the case and all the powder is burning at its peak temperature, that hurts the rifling right there. So it begins to crack and erode and break up. It's a combination of heat, cold, hot, hot, cold, shrinking, and there's some chemical action going on too. And that breaks down the steel, and then you rough up your bullet over time as it gets worse and worse and tear that bullet, and then you start to lose accuracy. Now, in the old days, cheapskates like Grandpa Ron here, we would set back the threads far enough so that your bullet was now in a fresh area. You would rechamber. There was enough thickness on your barrel right there that you could rechamber it an inch or two, and you could get a little extra life out of it. But I don't know if people are still doing that. It's probably just as inexpensive or cheap to get a new barrel put on. And target shooters are always into that. They run through a lot of barrels in a season. And that sounds like something you'll probably be doing here. So, yeah, I probably won't discuss this all the time, but any of you out there can feel free to remind me from time to time. Mention the barrel burning aspects of these cartridges from time to time for those of us who are target shooting. I guess I just always assume that those of you who do this target game are pretty well up on that stuff. And it really comes down to a fairly low volume cartridge case driving those bullets. So you're going to be looking at the short actions, the 7mm Psalms and the 25 Creedmoors and the 6mm Creedmoor. But that whole Creedmoor family, it seems to be the short, efficient rounds. So that's the way to look at it. Just assume you're going to get better barrel life out of that. And of course, the .308 Winchester. That's kind of the classic. Blaine from Utah. Ron, I enjoy your YouTube videos and podcasts very much. I was watching one recently when you asked if someone had experience with a .460 Weatherby Magnum. Well, I certainly do. In 1984, when I was working in England, my best friend who lived in Holland went to Amsterdam Airport and purchased 2 map cases which had been left in storage. When he opened them, he found a Weatherby Vanguard 7mm Remington Magnum and a Mark V .460, both with scopes. What? How do you... Map cases. I guess I don't know what a map case is, but I am shocked that you can go to Amsterdam airport and buy firearms. Obviously, nobody knew what was in there.
I think he probably bought whatever was left after a certain time.
Somebody forgot something at the airport or got
and then you just
lost
bid
and
on it. And,
lost luggage or something like
Yeah.
that. Wow, that is quite a story. Well, let's see where it goes. They both had scopes on him. My goodness, I wonder what he had to pay for it. At any rate, he was very intent on shooting them, but because he had recently had detached retina, he was reluctant to fire the big boy. Yeah, that's smart. He asked me to come to Holland and test fire the gun because I had a lot of firearms experience. Well, I did so the next weekend. We went to his gun club in Rotterdam, and I proceeded to test fire the 460 Weatherby Magnum. I expected it to kick. So instead of hunching over the rifle on the bench, I shot it from a seated position, but rather erect. That was good. The recoil, while severe, was not too extreme. After firing 5 times to get the 2 to 4 power scope sighted in at 100 meters, a crowd of gun club members gathered to find out what the noise was all about. The gun grouped at about 1.5 inches for 3 shots. After zeroing, and one of the fellow members of his club insisted that he wanted to shoot the gun. Well, I think that the largest firearm in the club at that time was a 7mm Mauser, and it was causing quite a stir. My friend didn't want this young man to fire the gun, but the club manager thought he was being unreasonable. After some discussion, we had the young man sign a waiver, and he sat down to give it a go. I stood next to him as I expected him to get hurt from the recoil, but I didn't want the brand new rifle to get damaged so I could catch it before it hit the ground. My goodness. As expected, the young Dutchman was knocked over backward and the rifle flew into the air where I caught it. The young guy was quite dazed, and after a few seconds it appeared he had a Weatherby eyebrow. Oh my goodness. One of the club members was a doctor. Oh my God, this is crazy. One of the members was a doctor, and he promptly stitched up the forehead while it was still numb. The 460 Weatherby Mag as Novocaine. I love it. The guy wore the scar as some kind of a badge of honor for having survived, and my friend sold the gun to a member of his hunting club in Austria who wanted it for African game. My own Ruger 77 458 Win Mag didn't recoil unreasonably as long as it was held firmly, certainly not as painful as my 300 Win Mag, and with a 230 grain Colorado Customs hand load, which we used to shoot water buffalo coming out of the swamp. Whew. Oh, burning cane fields. They came out of cane. In southern Iran, this guy has gotten around, folks. What was your name? Blaine. Wow, from Utah. I got to meet this guy. So he's hunting in southern Iran for water buffalo and burning cane fields, where we were positioned to take them to ensure that no one was hurt by the rampaging beasts. I think that the weights of the rifle were a big factor in taming the recoil. Please keep up the good work, as it's very enjoyable to an old man. I am now 81 and unable to get out into the field. Blaine. Wow, those are some great stories, Blaine. And congrats for hanging in there at 81. I don't suspect you want to shoot that 460 Weatherby Magnum anymore either, do you? What a great story. Any more 460 Rem Mag stories out there? They seem to be pretty fun. Send them in, guys. I still haven't shot one. I've got a friend not too far from here, I believe he said. He's got quite a Weatherby collection, and he said, come over sometime, I have one. If I'm not mistaken, I've got to get a hold of him, see if I can't shoot one. We'll film it, see if he can knock me over. I don't weigh a lot, so it's got a good opportunity. All right, let's see. John from Texas. Well, I'll be darned. He's got a Browning X-Bolt in 30-06. He's learning the ins and outs of it. On his last trip to the range, he says, I shot a sub-MOA group with 150 grain Federal blue box ammo. That's your standard soft point, nothing special. But it shot a sub-MOA group with 180 grain Remington Corlocks too, and I shot a couple of groups with 165 grain Federal Fusion ammunition. The latter of the three, the 165, shot just terribly. I had a group of 5 shots string across 7 inches at 100 yards. What? And another group just under 4 inches. I'm puzzled because if it were the ammo used, why would it be in the middle weight of the types? Wouldn't it trend toward a heavier or lighter bullet? I will admit I have not been very attentive to my barrel's temperature, but it could really go from sub-MOA group to 7 inches after just a reload. It is normal. Is it normal for barrels to start slinging bullets so suddenly? I appreciate your work, and I'm doing my best to hunt honest and shoot straight. Thanks for all your research and hard work. Yeah, kind of hard to shoot straight with a 7-inch group and rifle, isn't it? No, that is a strange one. I have never seen a rifle that spread shots like that. Oh man, yeah, that's almost like you're shooting an undersized bullet or something. Yeah, unless I would look at this stuff, I really couldn't tell you. 30-06. What else would you shoot in it but a 30-06? Did you get some 270 ammo by mistake? I can't think of a 165 grain 270 load. Federal Fusion, those bullets have shot well in a number of rifles for me. Took a 223 to Africa one time, shot their 62 grain, and boy, that worked beautifully. So, yeah, that's a weird one. I have never understood why that would be 7 inches. I mean, gosh, even if your barrel is free floating and suddenly slapping one side of the channel or the other on the stock, it shouldn't fling them off that much. That's a weird one. Anybody got any similar experiences? Who has had a rifle that would group one load sub-MOA and another spread across 7 inches or even 3 inches, maybe 2.5, but I've had some that got pretty, what I consider to be really inaccurate, but not that bad. That's a scratcher, a real head scratcher, John. We'll see if anybody can enlighten us. Meantime, keep working with that one. You might try if you want to, clean that barrel down to bare metal and then try those 165 grain loads. And you may also check your screws, the bedding screws stock to the barreled action. Maybe they got loosened up and you just happened to start shooting when they were loose enough to make the big difference. I don't know. Still seems like too much, but give it a try. All right, Mike from, looks like New Hampshire. I have asked this question a bunch of times, but I've not gotten an answer. I'm looking for a 12-gauge semi-automatic slug gun for hunting. By slug gun, I mean a rifle-sighted barrel. Oh, you were looking for a rifled 12-gauge barrel or 20-gauge barrel, but you want 12, and with sights on it. I prefer a quality firearms comparable to Browning. Well, Mike, I haven't been keeping up on slug guns. We just don't use them out here in the West. I've used them a few times in the East. I have a Savage. They were making a good bolt action. You want an autoloader. Well, surely there's somebody that sells barrels in that. I would think comparable to Browning. Check Browning. I'll bet you they're offering a rifled slug barrel with sights. And check the rifling, the spin rate. Some of them are set up for shooting sabots, but some may be set up for full diameter bullet, and then they're going to use probably a different twist rate. So you want to get the right twist rate on that. Yeah, I'm sorry if I knew exactly, but I'm pretty sure Mossberg is selling some rifled slug barrels. They've got that new 940. It's a really highly rated autoloader. I've got the 930, the prior version of it, and it's quite a reliable autoloading, rugged, durable gun. I wouldn't hesitate to put a rifled slug barrel on that one and see how well it does. But yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't help you out. Anybody out there with some experience on this one, you could also write in and let us know what we should be telling Mike about good semi-auto slug shotguns with rifled barrels and sights. Yeah, and we'll see if we can't help him out next time. Well, I think that's it. What do we have here? Bringing back the lions.
Are there any more questions? Are there 12 questions?
That's all I've got for questions here. Oh, there's some more. Okay, guys, we've got some more questions for you. Here's one out of Canada by Phil. Hey, Ron, I've been shooting for about 20 years now, primarily handguns and a .223 on targets. I didn't grow up in a household where hunting or shooting were part of everyday life, so I really appreciate individuals like you who take the time to share knowledge with folks like me. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I'm more than happy to do it, obviously, because I'm doing it every week. But Phil says, here is my dilemma. I'm Canadian. That's a dilemma. It's unfortunate that's a dilemma, but for hunters and shooters, it really is. They do not have the Second Amendment guarantee freedoms that we do here in the US of A. And I feel sorry for our friends up in Canada because they've got a great country with a lot of wild places that still have some incredible numbers of wild animals, which we all love. At least I do. And I love to go hunting in Canada. I've done it many, many, many times and have had some wonderful times up there. So I get you, buddy. I hear what you're saying. So let's continue with Phil. With the current political climate up here, my options have been shrinking. As if they weren't low enough already, huh? I currently own 3 AR platforms, 2 Ruger Mini 14s, a Ruger PC 9mm. Ooh, we better keep your name out of this, buddy. The cops are going to come looking. And a few other rifles that are now considered too scary to use and are banned. What I have left that are usable are handguns, which I can no longer buy or sell, a couple of 22 long rifles, and an old SKS. I just wanted to paint a bit of a picture to give you some context. Yeah, this is a dark picture. Canada's landscape is very different from the U.S. Access to custom actions, barrels, or even competent gunsmiths is limited and often expensive. That said, I'm in the market for a good precision shooting rifle, and I think I've narrowed it down to the new Tikka T3A1C Ace Target. Now I am stuck on one question: 6.5 Creedmoor or 308 Winchester? I have listened to a lot of your podcasts and YouTube videos, and I've heard people say that you hate the 308. It's got a nice rhyme to it, doesn't it? We hate the 308. Don't be late. But I don't get that impression. You just lay out the facts. There you go. There's an honest assessment. Some people get pretty upset with me when I lay out the facts. But I have to admit that I kind of turn the knife a little bit and dig it in and poke fun at them with their 308s, but there's nothing wrong with it. All right, let's continue here. I have probably done more research on calibers than I should have at this point, but I understand that in the U.S. market, the 308 doesn't necessarily shine when it comes to long-range or target practice, especially with how available cheap barrels, smiths, and match-grade ammo are in the States. But in Canada, things are different, so I keep coming back to this. Is there really that big of a difference between the 308 and the 6.5 Creedmoor? Do a couple of ticks in a mill scope inside of 800 yards really make that much of a difference? And with all the Canadian specific limitations, limited ammo availability, expensive barrel swaps, is the 6.5 Creedmoor still the better choice over the 308? From my perspective, the two feel too close to call, and the advantage of 6.5 Creedmoor seems to lose ground when you factor in the realities up here. I know there are great calibers like 7 PRC, 300 Win Mag, but those feel like a different class entirely. Between the 308 and the 6.5 Creedmoor, it feels like comparing two different hammers, just built for slightly different nails. Oh my goodness. I know this is a bit outside of the norm, but I really appreciate your perspective on choosing between these two outside of the U.S. Thanks in advance for your time and for the great content you put out there. Cheers. Well, let's see, Phil. I want to tell you this. Here's the deal on it. Wind deflection. Yeah, drop. You can always calculate that kind of stuff. Neither of those is particularly fast. Both of them are famous, well-known for match-grade accuracy and all the rest. You can get a lot of rifles built that way. Ammo, usually built pretty accurately. So they're kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, until it comes to wind deflection. You will get, for the same muzzle velocity, you will get a higher BC out of your bullets going the same velocity in your 6.5. The Creedmoor wins on wind deflection, especially at distance. I've always found that after about 600 yards, that 308 really starts to suffer. The 6.5 hangs in there. And as I've said many times, it's the wind that gets you. I'm not a big-time competition target shooter. I shoot steel from time to time pretty far out there and stuff. But, boy, all the guys who really dote on the target shooting say, you keep your BCs up for whatever velocity you've got in that bullet, and that will increase or decrease the wind deflection so that you increase your accuracy. So that's why I would choose that 6.5 Creedmoor. And I don't know exactly how ammo availability is up where you are, but I would guess the 6.5 Creedmoor, it's been around since 2007 or so. You should have plenty of choices on that stuff up there. That's what I would go with. Now, the 308 guys are going to say, I hate it. No, I don't hate it, guys. These are the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. Out to 500 yards, maybe 600, 308 will hang right in there, but I've seen pretty good evidence that even the 243 Winchester with the right bullet can do less wind deflection and keep your shots on target at 1,000 yards better than the 308 Winchester can, so there's that. Well, good luck to you up there, Phil, and sorry about all of your troubles. Isaac from Washington State, not D.C. I'm a 21-year-old from Washington. I'm getting into hunting and shooting. He says shopping for my first. Oh, he is getting into shopping. I'm getting into shopping and hunting for my first hunting rifle. I used to have a Precision Howa 1500 chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor, but I sold it a while ago, so I'm having a hard time deciding on a cartridge for most big game. From talking to people, watching YouTube, and reading online, well, most people are recommending a 30-06 because versatility and availability. They also recommend a 300 Win Mag for big game and 270 Winchester for deer. The issue I'm having is that I'm a tall guy, and out of all the rifles that I've held, I found the Weatherby Model 307 Alpine CT to be the most comfortable in my hands. The rifle doesn't come in 30-06. The options they have that I'm considering are 300 Winchester Magnum, 300 PRC 28 Nosler, 280 AI, 7 PRC, 7 BC. Is there another cartridge that you recommend that I forgot to list? Which would you recommend to someone just starting out? Should I stick to the classics or go with the new stuff? Thanks. I love your videos and podcasts. Well, appreciate that, Isaac. Yeah, you've got a lot of great options here, Isaac. I can tell you, if you want the ultimate in long reach and all the rest of it, one of the big magnums will certainly give that to you. The 300 PRC and the 300 Win Mag, that's a classic. That the 28 Nosler, I think, is going to shoot a little flatter, going to have a higher BC bullet and a similar weights, so you're going to have less wind deflection, but boy, they burn a lot of powder, and a lot of guys looking for more efficiency like that 280 Ackley Improved. I myself have used that for years and years and really like it, but you do not get quite the velocity you would that you're going to get out of your 7 BC or your 7 PRC or even your 7 Rem Mag, which you didn't mention. But hey, those are all good. So you might want to consider, am I going to be able to find the ammunition I need? If you don't hand load, you got to buy factory stuff. Yeah, the 280 AI, the 7 PRC, then they're going to have a little more limited supply, I think. Whereas the 300 Win Mag, you'll have an incredible variety. 300 PRC and the 7 BC, limited again. So check your ammunition. Look online and find out how many different loads from how many different brands are out there. And that might help you decide. Any of them are going to work beautifully on anything you want to hunt. I would not hesitate. I've used the 280 AI on elk and moose. Can't remember if I hunted bear with it, but I certainly wouldn't hesitate to do so. So you're going to be fine there. Yeah, you've got some great choices. Sounds like you found the rifle that fits you, and that's a big part of it. So make your pick, and I don't think you're going to have any issues. Good luck. Nicholas in Pennsylvania. Ron, I'm going on an Idaho elk and deer hunt with my dad in September. I purchased a Bergara Sierra Wilderness in 7 PRC and outfitted it with a Vortex Viper Gen 2 3-15 scope. I enjoy that rifle a lot. I've tested it on whitetail deer in Pennsylvania and have been happy with the rifle, but not always with the chosen bullet. A roughly 90-yard shot with a Federal Premium 175 grain ELDX load cleanly took a very large doe out, but upon reaching her, she appeared to have been taking shrapnel from mortar. Oh my goodness. I was disappointed by that. Yeah, I imagine I would be too. I managed to get my hands on a 170 grain Terminal Ascent, which the rifle started producing sub-MOA groups with. I took a deer for crop damage with that rifle and this load, and during the agricultural season, and it was at 354 yards. Again, a large doe, and the bullet made a phenomenal entry and exit. She expired within 50 yards. If it was up to me, I would use this load only for this rifle and especially for this upcoming trip. However, Federal seems to be out of stock, and I didn't stock up due to current ammunition prices. Federal seems to only make some hunting ammo in batches, which is most definitely a hindrance at times. However, I can readily get Barnes 160 grain LRX, providing that they shoot sufficiently in my rifle. Would you have any concerns using this ammunition for elk, whitetail, or mule deer, or the occasional bear? I love your podcast. I'm an older soul for 25, and I enjoy that you discuss firearms and hunting the old way as much as the new way. Looking forward to hearing from you. Good luck, Nick. Yeah, Nick, I think you're going to do just fine with that 160 grain LRX. My gosh, I love those Barnes bullets. Have since the early 1990s when I started hunting. with those after being in a hunting camp with the designer of them, the guy who created them, good old Randy Brooks. And I have hunted all over the world with those bullets. But if you do want to stick with those Federals that work so darn well for you, just do a little more searching for the ammo. You can't find it locally. I always say do an online site search. I do Midwest Gunworks. Gosh, the other day I was looking up the PRC loads. They had all of them, and they had the Federals as well as the Hornadies. And let's see, yeah, I think you're going to find them. They were in stock. I remember that. Midwest Gunworks. And they had all of the PRC loads for the 7 PRC in stock. So I think you should be able to find them. Yeah, get on there and do some searching. But if you can't, you have to go with the 165 grain Barnes. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I know the elk will. Everyone I've ever touched with the Barnes didn't like it. But I did take them out to dinner at no charge. So there is that. All right, Kyler from Nevada. Hello, Ron. I recently watched your video on brush busting cartridges. Oh, that one was a fun one. Tate and I had a blast doing that one. I thought I would share an experience that I had last year in Nevada with my mule deer hunt. I was presented with a broadside shot. I was using a CZ 550 American chambered in .243 Winchester, shooting Barnes TTSX factory ammo. See, there you go. Barnes bullets. The buck was at 310 yards, so I took a shot. Well, that buck clearly hit by the body language and the wallop that I heard, but he took a few steps, so I decided, well, I'd better take another shot. At this point, he was behind some tall brush. I took the shot, and he went another 10 yards, and then he fell over. Well, when I got to the deer, I noticed both shots were placed in the vitals behind the shoulder, but only one had exited the offside. While I quartered it, I found one bullet near the offside hide. That bullet wasn't expanded, but had a bow in it. I would guess that was the one that was shot through the brush. I think the moral of this story is that although the bullet happened to hit near the point of aim, it wasn't able to perform how it was designed due to tumbling. Boy, that's exactly right, Kyler. I had the same thing happen when I was finishing off a water buck that went hanging on the wall right over there. Great, big, beautiful 31-inch, I think he went. Woo. And at any rate, I shot him with a Barnes bullet north to south, shall we say, because those bullets penetrate so well. And sure enough, it got through and up into the vitals, but by then it was kind of running out of steam, and he needed a finishing shot when I walked up to him, and he was in thick brush. So I shot through the brush knowing that that big hard bullet was going to get through the brush, but it too was bent like a banana because it hit the brush and then bent before it hit the deer or the water buck behind it. Forgot the name of my water buck. I was going to call him Ralph, but water buck sounds more appropriate. So yeah, that's what happens. Now, these bullets with their hollow noses, copper bullets, they depend on a hydro opening. The moisture gets in there and opens that dramatically and quickly. But if you hit a hard subject like wood, it can close that and or start to bend it. And that's what happened with yours and mine. So yeah, it's another reason not to shoot through brush. With lead bullets, what we found was, of course, the bullet will deform as well in land. Gosh, we were shooting, some of them were 3 to 4 feet off the aim point after hitting some brush. And some of them landed in several pieces and everything else. So yeah, it's best just not to shoot through brush at all. But thanks for that. And I think there's probably more than a few folks out there who have had the bent bullet on some. I mentioned before, what were we shooting? That time it was the fail-safe from Winchester. This is back in the early 2000s, and the short mags were just out. 300 WSM, 270 WSM, and 7mm WSM. All great cartridges. A bunch of us went to Australia shooting buffalo with those. And we all got our buffalo. It worked just great. But one guy hit a limb about the size of my finger, maybe a little thicker, on the way to the buffalo. So he's aiming behind his shoulder, and he killed it with one shot to the neck. That bullet, probably close to 3 feet of deflection. Now, I've forgotten how far. It seems to me I stepped it off, and it was around 20 or 25 yards from the limb that he hit and the buffalo. But that deflected the bullet enough They hit him in the neck. And I can't remember if the bullet was sideways. I remember when I went up to it, I could see that the entrance hole was long, not a round circle. So the bullet was flying sideways by the time it hit that buffalo. Those are the kinds of things that happen out there when you shoot through brush. That looks like all of them today. So thanks to Betsy for collecting all of these off of Ron Spomer Outdoors website. If you guys want to send a comment in there rather than commenting on the podcasts or the YouTube videos, just go to ronspomeroutdoors.com. We have a lot of blogs on there. We also have the list of what's available for the RSO TV. If you want to see all of our podcasts and videos without the advertising, you can go there to watch it. It'll cost you $5 a month, but a lot of people think it's more than worth it, so they don't have to put up with the obnoxious advertising that goes on everywhere in the world these days. Pretty much always had. You will notice I don't have any ads on my chest, or if I stood up and bent over, you wouldn't see them on the backside. I'm just looking out for you guys. Betsy, have you anything to add?
Sometimes we don't do comments of the week, but this deserves a comment of the week with the 460.
Oh, the 460 gets our comment of the week. Indeed, we have gotten away from doing our comment of the week, but we definitely have to get it to the 81-year-old gentleman who had extensive experience with a 460. Amazing that he shot it 5 times, no problem, and then this young guy gets up and gets knocked over and rifle flies. Doctor has to fix his head from the skull. Oh my goodness. He was obviously an inexperienced shooter. But boy, guy was from Utah. His name was Blaine. Blaine, we really appreciate that. Was a funny letter, some great incident there. So thanks for writing in. You are our comment of the week. All the rest of you keep writing in and commenting because we will be searching for another comment of the week. If you can match up to what Blaine told us, you'll probably get the prize, which isn't anything, but it's recognition. Oh, I also want to mention it's probably too late for that. But you patrons out there, we're doing our monthly meetups, our hangouts. I like to call them campfires. So you guys at the 3rd tier level on Patreon and higher, you can all join us. It's kind of like a Zoom meeting. So everybody jumps in and I start talking about whatever topic of the month we want to talk about. Usually pick a couple. But then anything else you want to get into, you're free to do it. So I'll make a few comments and then somebody else will jump in and say, you're full of it, or I did the similar deal, and we just get to enjoy the conversation. And it's kind of fun because we discover different folks in different places are doing similar things to us or radically different. We had a gentleman from Austria on last time who filled us all in on gun laws over there, and we had a lot of misconceptions about what sort of firearms they could get and how many and how long they had to wait to pick one up and whether or not they could get a suppressor, kind of like buying candy over there, I guess. So, yeah, a lot of fun stuff. So if you want to join us, go to Patreon and then look for Ron Spomer Outdoors on Patreon, and they give complete instructions how you can join me, and then you can sign up for various tiers, and if you go to tier 3 and up, then you can join us on our monthly hangouts and campfire talks. So we're having one coming up here probably before this airs, so watch for the one coming up in June. That'll be the next one you can join us at. Love to have you. It's always a lot of fun. In the meantime, hunt honest and shoot straight.